It was a cold winter's morning on the island of Sodor. The wind was bitter and the ground hard with frost. Thomas and Percy were cold and cross. All I want is a warm boiler, huffed Thomas. Firelighter knows that. He's late. He's not late, replied Percy. This cold weather woke us up early. Gusts of wind swirled flakes of snow towards Thomas. Then they swooshed round Percy too. Why don't we talk about something else, shivered Percy. Yes, like how silly we look when our funnels turn into icicles. That's not funny. Maybe we'll stop feeling cold if we talk about warm things like sunshine and steam. And firelighters, muttered Thomas. Scarves, continued Percy. Scarves? That's what you need, Percy. A woolly scarf round your funnel. Thomas was only teasing, but Percy thought happily about scarves until the firelighter came.
One day, Edward was in the shed where he lived with the other engines. They were all bigger than Edward and boasted about it. "The driver won't choose you again," said Gordon. "He wants strong engines like us." But the driver and fireman felt sorry for Edward. "Would you like to come out today?" "Oh, yes, please," said Edward. So they lit his fire, made lots of steam, and Edward puffed away. The other engines were very cross at being left behind. Edward worked hard all day. The coaches thought he was very kind, and the driver was very pleased. "I'm going out again tomorrow," Edward told the other engines that night. "What do you think of that?" But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once. Next morning, Edward woke up to find nothing had changed. Gordon was still boasting. "You watch me, little Edward, as I rush through with the express. That will be a splendid sight for you. Goodbye, little Edward. Look out for me this afternoon." Edward went off to do some shunting. Edward liked shunting. It was fun playing with trucks. He would come up quietly and give them a push. Then he would stop and the silly trucks would go bump into each other. "Oh!" they cried. "Whatever is happening?" Edward played till there were no more trucks. Then he stopped to rest. Presently he heard a whistle. Gordon was very cross. Instead of nice shining coaches, he was pulling a lot of very dirty trucks. "A goods train, a goods train, a goods train," he grumbled. "The shame of it, the shame of it, oh, the shame of it." Edward laughed and went to find some more trucks. Then there was trouble. "Gordon can't get up the hill," the porter called to Edward's driver. "Will you take Edward and push him, please?" They found Gordon halfway up and very cross. His driver and fireman were talking to him severely. "You're not trying." "I can't do it," said Gordon. "The noisy trucks hold an engine back so." Edward's driver came up. "We've come to push." "No use at all," said Gordon. "You wait and see," replied Edward's driver. They brought the train back to the bottom of the hill. "I'm ready," said Edward. "No good," grumbled Gordon. They pulled and pushed as hard as they could. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it, puffed Gordon. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it, puffed Edward. Edward pushed and puffed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could. And almost before he realized it, Gordon found himself at the top of the hill. I've done it, I've done it, I've done it, he said proudly. He forgot all about Edward and didn't wait to say thank you. Edward was left out of breath and far behind. He ran on to the next station, and there he found that the driver and fireman were very pleased with him. The fireman gave him a nice long drink, and the driver said, I'll get out my paint tomorrow and give you a beautiful coat of blue with red stripes. Then you will be the smartest engine in the shed.
Stepney, the Bluebell engine, works closely with his friend Rusty. One day, the Fat Controller came to see him. Rusty tells me you're in need of change, so I want you to help Toby and Mavis in the quarry. Oh, thank you, sir, said Stepney. Shall I be away long? Just today, replied the Fat Controller. But please be careful, it's easy to get lost up there, so be back before dark. We will, said the driver. Stepney soon arrived at the quarry. We're glad you're here to help us, said Toby. Are those my trucks? Asked Stepney eagerly. Only some of them. There's masses more in the sidings, replied Mavis. The more the merrier, whistled Stepney. Stepney was really enjoying himself. The dustier he became, the harder he worked. Mavis and Toby were impressed. The quarry foreman spoke to his driver. We have a night special to take to the building site at the new branch line. Do you want to pull the train? Yes, please, said the driver. But he should have asked the Fat Controller first. Night came. Be careful, Stepney, advised Toby. I will, and thank you for a lovely day. I do hope I can come back again. The line can be spooky, said Mavis. Thank you for the warning. And with that, Stepney puffed away into the night. Stepney arrived on time and made the delivery of rock and stones for the workmen. Then he set off for home. It was a moonlit night and Henry was working with Edward. The big green engine was taking a goods train to the station by the lake. Whenever that owl hoots, a mist rolls in, murmured Edward. There's a legend that when the mist's about, there's a ghost about too. Take care on the old line, Henry. Stupid bird, said Henry. Owls, mists, ghosts. Edward's going soft in the boiler. There's no mist. But Henry was wrong. What's that? Cried Henry. It's an amber lamp, murmured his driver. That means proceed with caution. Who's there? No one replied. Henry crept slowly forward. He stopped by a tree. It had a sign nailed to it, "Beware of the viaduct." The driver was surprised. No one warned us about that before, and look, the signal's red and the gates are closed. And there's a fogman's coat. But where's its owner? Then they saw a light move within the station building. Ghosts! Exclaimed Henry. Edward was right. Something very strange is happening, said his driver. I think it's best we go back. So do I, agreed Henry. By morning, the mist had cleared. A workman was talking about the unsafe viaduct. Lucky you didn't cross it last night. Yes, but we don't know who warned us, replied Henry's driver. Later that day, he spoke to Henry. The viaduct has been repaired. We can take our train back along the old line tonight. Henry didn't really want to. But when nightfall came, he was sizzling nicely. Suddenly, an owl hooted, and then Gordon thundered by. Oh, look!
Henry's spooked, said a truck, and the others giggled in their silly way. Be quiet, snapped Henry. I'm not scared. But he was. A little later, the fog came down. As they approached the same area, they saw the amber light again. Here we go, said Henry's driver. Then, unbeknown to Henry, the gates mysteriously closed by themselves, and the signal went red. The trucks had seen all, and they were spooked too. Faster, faster, there's a ghost about! Stop, stop, yelled Henry. A mysterious figure watched Henry go by. Ahead was a landslide blocking the line. Henry braked hard, but the trucks hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine. Just then, Henry's driver saw a strange sight coming towards them. "What's that?" he said. The fireman laughed. "That's our ghost. It's old Bailey, the fogman." Old Bailey was very cross. "I tried to warn you about that viaduct. Why didn't you pay attention?" "We're sorry we ignored your warnings," replied the driver. "Is there anything we can do to thank you?" "I'd like to operate that old station again, if you let me. I promise I won't spook Henry." And in a little while, old Bailey's wish was granted. "You and your station will be really useful," said the Fat Controller. "Let's hear a hearty thank you to the friendliest, ghost on the island." Everyone cheered, especially Henry, who was the happiest of all.
"Oh, what's that?" murmured Rusty. But it was only the sounds of the lonely scrapyard. Diesels, silent and still, lined up on guard. "Who are you?" Rusty plucked up courage. "I'm a shed and sidings inspection diesel. Have you any engines in the shed?" "No, no." Rusty rallied again. "Then, what about the sidings?"
"One. We have one."
Rusty grew braver still. "Then I'll just go and inspect." A small engine with a tall funnel stood sad and alone in the shadowy siding. His driver was huddled in the cab, keeping him company. "Excuse me," said Rusty. "Do you like bluebells?" The engine looked startled. "Yes, bluebells are beautiful." "Then you're soon going to see lots of them, because I'm getting you out of here." Everyone worked fast. It was difficult to set the fire, but soon it was glowing hot and Stepney had a good head of steam. Rusty's engineer agreed to be Stepney's fireman. So off they set, past the bleak and brooding line of diesels.
"Where is he going?"
They hissed. "Just down the line," replied Rusty. And they chuffered quickly away. "We've done it! We're over the border and back on our own railway. Mission accomplished!"
It's been very nice seeing you. Goodbye.
Percy and Duck like working at the harbour by the sea. On a clear summer's night, there is no better place to be. The big ships bring passengers. Cargo ships carry machinery and other things. Duck and Percy puff backwards and forwards with the crates of cargo as they are loaded and unloaded by the quayside. One morning, Duck and Percy noticed that the horizon was packed with sails flapping against the blue sky. "I wish I could sail to faraway lands," sighed Duck. "Engines can't go sailing," snorted Percy, "because engines can't float." Duck still had his dreams. Suddenly they were rudely interrupted. "Wakey, wakey," hovered Harold. "I'm looking at the boats," replied Duck. "That's the Regatta," whirred Harold. "Lots of boats, lots of races, great fun. I hover around in case I'm needed." "Do you go to the horizon?" asked Duck. "Yes, and beyond." "I didn't know there was a beyond," whispered Percy. "Do you go to other places at sea?" continued Duck. "Certainly. I can land on ships, you know, anywhere, anytime. Goodbye." Duck sighed. He went on talking about the Regatta all day. Percy lost patience. "Well, Duck, I'd rather have my wheels on solid ground. Our rails can take us to all the places we could ever wish to see." "That's an emergency," called Duck's driver. "I'll check with the harbour master." He returned with bad news. "A man taking part in the Regatta has hurt his hand. We're to take him to the hospital at the next station. Harold's bringing him now. Come on." "Good to see you again, Duck," whirred Harold as he landed carefully on the platform. The man was gently helped to safety. "My job is to stay at sea in case of other emergencies. Otherwise, I would take this gentleman to hospital myself. Must fly. Goodbye." Duck set off on his journey. Soon he was steaming well and his wheels were thundering along the track. When they reached the station, the man thanked everyone and Bertie got ready to take him to hospital. "You look splendid flying along the line, Duck," glowed Bertie. "No wonder they call you Great Western." Percy's right, Duck thought to himself. Engines are happiest when their wheels are firmly on the rails. That night, Percy and Duck stayed a little longer at the quay. The air was warm and the sea calm. "There's a shooting star," said Duck. "Don't be daft," laughed Percy. "It's Harold. Look, he's hovering overhead." Something fluttered down towards Duck. His driver caught it. "It's a flag from the Regatta. Harold's giving it to you as a present, Duck." "That was kind of Harold," whispered Duck. "He may have whirly arms instead of wheels, but he seems to understand just what an engine needs." Duck still wonders about the lands beyond the horizon, but he enjoys being with friends most of all, and I think he knows that sometimes the best travels are those we can only dream about. Don't you? Oliver had been to the works to be mended. Some troublesome trucks tricked him, and the Great Western engine fell into the turntable well. Now, Oliver was as good as new, but he was still worried about trucks. "I'd rather not use them," he puffed to himself. But the trucks sang songs, rude and loud. Scruffy, their leader, led the chorus. "Oliver's no use at all, thinks he's very clever, says that he can manage us, that's the best joke ever. When the yacht is on about, when the grates is falling, we just push him down the well."
Pop, go to Dolly.
Thomas, Duck and Percy were shocked. Be quiet, they ordered. But they couldn't be everywhere, and everywhere they weren't, the trucks began again.
Oliver's no use at all. Thinks he's very clever. Says that he can manage us. That's the best joke ever.
At last, the engines gave up. "We're sorry, Oliver," they said. "It's really my fault," said Oliver sadly. "I shouldn't have fallen in the turntable well." Toad the brake fan felt sorry for Oliver too.
It was 2 days before Christmas. Many children were expected on the island of Sodor. All the engines were busy with the final preparations. The Fat Controller wanted this year's carol party to be an extra special celebration. The Fat Controller was now waiting impatiently for Thomas. "Quickly now," he said. "Our Christmas tree has arrived just in time. I want you to fetch it, Thomas. Duck can look after Annie and Clarabelle until you get back." "Will we be able to sing carols too?" asked Thomas. "We'll see," promised the Fat Controller. It would be nice to sing carols again, sighed Thomas, as he set off on his important mission. Over here. 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, like magic, the station was flooded with lights. "Ladies, gentlemen, and children, I give you 3 cheers for Thomas the Tank Engine and all his friends who have made this occasion possible." Suddenly, there was a strange whirring sound. Percy and Toby smiled. They knew who it was. With landing lights shining brightly, Harold the helicopter touched down gently in the snow. Bringing the greatest surprise of all, Father Christmas. Everyone cheered and the party began. "It's no fun getting stuck in the snow," whispered Thomas to Percy, "but it was worth it for this party. Happy Christmas, Percy. Happy Christmas, everyone." Thomas the Tank Engine was grumbling to the other engines. "I spend my time pulling coaches about ready for you to take out on journeys." The other engines laughed. "Why can't I pull passenger trains too?" "You're too impatient," they said. "You'd be sure to leave something behind." "Rubbish," said Thomas. "I'll show you." One night, he and Henry were alone. Henry was ill. The men worked hard, but he didn't get better. He felt just as bad next morning. Henry usually pulled the first train, and Thomas had to get his coaches ready. "If Henry is ill," he thought, "perhaps I shall pull his train." Thomas ran to find the coaches. Come along," he fussed. There's plenty of time," they grumbled. Thomas took them to the platform and wanted to run round in front at once. But his driver wouldn't let him. "Don't be impatient, Thomas." Thomas waited and waited. The people got in. The guard and station master walked up and down. The porter banged the doors, and still Henry didn't come. Thomas got more and more excited. The Fat Controller came to see what was the matter, and the guard and the station master told him about Henry. "Find another engine," he ordered. "There's only Thomas," they said. "You'll have to do it then, Thomas. Be quick now." So Thomas ran round to the front and back down on the coaches ready to start. "Don't be impatient," said his driver. "Wait till everything is ready." But Thomas was too excited to listen. What happened then, no one knows. Perhaps they forgot to couple Thomas to the train, or perhaps the driver pulled the lever by mistake. Anyhow, Thomas started. As he passed the first signal box, men waved and shouted, but he didn't stop. They're waving because I'm such a splendid engine, he thought importantly. Henry says it's hard to pull trains, but I think it's easy. Hurry, 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 he puffed, pretending to be like Gordon. People have never seen me pulling a train before. It's nice of them to wave, and he whistled. Peep, peep, thank you. Then he came to a signal at danger. Bother, he thought. I must stop, and I was going so nicely too. What a nuisance signals are. He blew an angry peep, peep on his whistle. The signalman ran up. Hello, Thomas, he said. What are you doing here? I'm pulling a train, said Thomas. Can't you see? Where are your coaches, then? Thomas looked back. Why, bless me, he said, if we haven't left them behind. Yes, said the signalman. You'd better go back quickly and fetch them. Poor Thomas was so sad he nearly cried. Cheer up, said his driver. Let's go back quickly and try again. Station, all the passengers were talking at once. They were telling the Fat Controller what a bad railway it was. But when Thomas came back, they saw how sad he was and couldn't be cross. He was coupled to the train, and this time he really pulled it. But for a long time afterwards, the other engines laughed at Thomas and said, Look, there's Thomas, who wanted to pull a train, but forgot about the coaches. Every year on the date of the accident, it runs again as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul. Percy, what are you talking about? The ghost train. Driver saw it last night. Where? Asked Thomas and Toby. He didn't say. Oh, it makes my wheels wobble to think of it. Huh, said Thomas. You're just a silly little engine. I'm not scared. Thomas didn't believe in your ghost, said Percy next morning. His driver laughed. Neither do I. It was a pretend ghost on television. Percy was disappointed. That evening, he came back from the harbour. Percy knew where he was, even in the dark. Crow's Farm Crossing. We shan't be long now. He liked running at night. The rails hummed and the signal lights shone green. But a broken cartload of lime lay ahead. Sam the farmer had just gone for help. Percy broke the cart to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere. He puffed quickly to the nearest signal box. Percy's driver explained what had happened. I'll see to it, said the signalman, but you'd better clean Percy, or people will think he's a ghost. Percy chuckled. Do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare Thomas. That'll teach him to say I'm a silly little engine. Toby promised to help. Thomas was being oiled up for his evening train. Percy's had an accident, cried Toby. Poor engine, said Thomas. Botheration! That means I'll be late. they've cleared the line for you, but there's something worse. Out with it, Toby. I can't wait all evening. I've just seen something, said Toby. It looked like Percy's ghost. It said it was coming here to warn us. Huh! Who cares? Don't be frightened, Toby. I'll take care of you. Pee, pee, pip, 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 pee. Let me in! Let me in! Wailed Percy. No, no, not by the smoke of my chimney, chim. I'll chuff and I'll puff and I'll break your door in. Oh dear, exclaimed Thomas. It's getting late. Oh, I'd no idea. Oh, I must find Annie and Clarabel. It was morning when Thomas returned. Where have you been? Asked Toby. Ah, well, said Thomas. I knew you'd be sad about Percy, and I didn't like to intrude. I slept in the goods shed, and... Oh, sorry, can't stop. Got to see a coach about to train. Percy was none the worse for his adventure and was still enjoying himself enormously. He had heard everything. Well, well, well. What do you know about that? Anyone would think, chuckled Toby, that our Thomas had just seen a ghost.
When darkness falls, leaving shadows.